Welcome to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy. And today we're going to tell you about Jorge Torres and Sarah Boone.
Don't forget to smash that like button and go and check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and Facebook. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends.
Here we are. Finally. This might be a longer episode and we won't be able to give all the details. So this one will really need to be done in 2 parts.
2 parts.
And I'm sorry, some people don't like that. I'm one of them, but
This is actually a really big case.
it's a big case. It's so big.
You know, and it's got a lot of
Coverage.
on it and everything.
Yeah, a lot.
And if you've watched the videos on it like you have,
Mhm.
and I've kind of heard some stuff back and forth, you know, between your aunts and
Right?
man, I don't know why it took so long.
Oh, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So for this one, I think we'll just give an idea of what the case is. In case some of you didn't watch this trial gavel to gavel like I did. It took years to get here. And in my deep dives, I have seen some stuff. So now I'm going to tell you the stuff. And then in the second one, I think we'll get into all the trouble that she's been in while she's been in jail and some stuff from her alimony case because Brian's trying to get out of that now. We'll get into it. And the cheese. You need to stick around for the cheese. So see part 2 for that. And like you said, you know some of this criminal case stuff because we've talked about it with some of our biggest fans.
Best fans ever.
Best fans ever. But you don't know all of it, so.
Yeah, we actually went to the family reunion and your aunt was like, all right, what is the rules of Uno?
She did.
And she's like, well, if you guys were listening
Yeah.
to the podcast, you guys would know this.
She's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa. Now, trigger warning, if you're unfamiliar with this case altogether, we will be talking about domestic violence throughout the whole case. And that's the whole thing with this one. It's pretty extensive on both sides of this relationship. And there's heavy alcoholism. So safety first. We can catch you on another one if that's your preference. What happened is, on Monday, February 24th of 2020, Orange County deputies responded to a 911 call made by Sarah Boone at 1:01 p.m. She called them to her townhome in Winter Park, Florida, saying her boyfriend or fiancé, Jorge Torres Jr., was deceased. She did CPR on him at the direction of the 911 operator, but he was confirmed deceased at 1:07 p.m.
Well, that was kind of fast.
And that was very fast.
Yeah. 101 and then 107, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was really no question, sadly, that he was gone. Sad. He was found lying on the living room floor of the townhome near a blue suitcase, and he had some obvious marks on him. So detectives really wanted to talk to Sarah. Her first interview with them at the scene that day was at 4:57 p.m. I watched a lot of body cam footage in this case, and in one where George was getting arrested, they asked him the pronunciation of his name, and he said it was Jorge, but he prefers to be called George, so that's how we'll be referring to him. Now, her and George were the only humans inside the home that day, which is referred to in the court as Sunday Fun Day. Now, Sarah does have a son named Lucas, who was 9 at the time, but he was with her ex-husband, and she has 2 dogs, one that is deaf and one that is blind.
It's a good thing the dogs didn't hear or see nothing.
Really?
It was too early.
That was too soon.
Oh, okay.
Okay, she said her and George got up that morning and did their chores, cleaning up the house, things like that. That way they could chill for the rest of the day as a reward. Now, she said George went to Publix and got a bottle of wine. And they were having a great day. She tried to keep him occupied by doing puzzles and painting pictures. The 2 went outside to drink and smoke cigarettes at around 4 that afternoon because they aren't allowed to smoke inside.
I bet they smoked inside.
Oh, they smoked inside because we see it on the videos, like body cams and stuff, where she comes out of the house and she's got a cigarette in her hand. And then we also see videos that she made of him where he's smoking, sitting in the living room floor. So plus there's ashtrays on the tables and stuff inside. So it's not like a random thing. I think they do it a lot. But they had a little patio out in the backyard at the townhome, and they like to hang out there and drink and just chill out until the bugs, tried to carry him off because we are in Florida. She said she had him call his daughters and his brother. And later that night, they were back inside and bored when George tapped her on the knee and said, "You're it." So she said she ran upstairs and hid in the shower. Now, I'm not sure who taught her how to play hide and seek, but if you're it, you don't hide. But she did, because as you will see, Sarah does things the way she wants to do things.
And how old are they?
They're like close to our age. They're 40 and 42, somewhere around in there. Yeah. And this was like, oh, we got to pause, y'all. We got to go play hide and seek.
Yeah, you're it.
Now, they were heavy drinkers, so, alcohol mentality is different. Now, after a while, when George didn't come up to find her, she said she went downstairs because she just wanted the night to be done because she was ready to have relations and go to sleep.
Relations.
Yeah, relations. That'd be the best way to say that. But she came back downstairs and saw George getting into a blue suitcase. It was downstairs because they were planning on filling it with like old clothes and donating it because the zipper was broke on the suitcase. The pull tab was missing, so they had a paper clip on it to be able to zip and unzip it. And she says that she thought it would be funny for her to zip him into the suitcase. So she did, but she left it unzipped a little bit, and they were both laughing and carrying on. She made sure that they knew he got into that suitcase willingly, and he was able to get 2 fingers out of the gap that she left in the zipper. George fit because he has a small structure. He was 5'2" and weighed about 103 pounds. Now at approximately 12:30, she went upstairs and went to bed, thinking that when George was done, he would get out of the suitcase and come upstairs for bed too. It took her about 20 to 30 minutes before she fell asleep. Now, she didn't pass out. They were not drunk. She likes to keep her wits about her, so she didn't get drunk that night.
So she left him in the suitcase, went upstairs and passed out.
Yeah, she passed out.
What I don't, they're going to give this suitcase away to
the Goodwill or something.
Goodwill or whatever, and say he's going to pack some clothes in. So instead, they decided to pack Jorge into there.
Yes, she did. Yeah.
And then she decides she's ready for bed.
Yes, she talks about sleep a lot.
So instead of unzipping him,
yeah, or
she's like, when you're ready, come on upstairs.
Yeah, but everything was great.
When you're done playing hide and seek
by yourself,
come on upstairs. I'll be in bed.
Yeah, make it make sense.
Yeah.
She was very adamant that she just fell asleep. She kept saying she has things to do. She has a lot going on and a son to take care of, so she was not drunk.
Sounds like she's telling tales out of school to me.
Yeah, it makes no sense to anybody who's listening to it. You have no idea what you're in for with her. But she woke up the next day hearing her phone ring over and over. No one called her like that except for Brian, the ex-husband. It was her day to pick up Lucas from school, and he would call on repeat to make sure that she was going to be able to do it. So she laid there and let it keep ringing. It was downstairs, so she wasn't going to rush down there and get it. George wasn't in bed, so she figured he was downstairs on Lucas's laptop looking for a job. He was always stressed because he didn't have a job and couldn't provide for her properly.
Why isn't she going to work? I mean, you said this was Monday, right?
Right. Now, she hadn't worked for a couple of years at this point. She lived off of alimony from her divorce with Brian.
Of course.
Yes. And she finally, a couple of hours later, after she woke up, gets motivated enough to go downstairs. That's her word, motivated. But it's quiet. She starts looking around for George and then sees the suitcase. Realizing that the last time she saw George was when she was putting him in the suitcase, she started freaking out. She unzipped the suitcase, found him unresponsive, pulled him out, and stretched his body out. And she then called Brian.
That was a good time to return a phone call, call Brian back. Don't call 911 quite yet.
Not yet. And she wasn't really returning his call, more like calling him to tell him George was dead. She begged him to come over. I mean, he just lived right down the road. So he walked in, told her to call 911, and stayed in the foyer. And Sarah gave both verbal and written consent by signing waivers and affidavits so that they could search her iPhone XS. The next day, February 25th, the autopsy was done, and they called Sarah to come to the station. Now, she was excited to get her phone back and had a list of questions. The first interview was audio only because they were in the car, but this one is actual video because they were at the station, so you can see her and her reactions. And this one goes a little differently. They let her talk and talk, something she loves to do. But you can tell by the questions that they're building up to something.
Just give her that shovel.
That's exactly what they did. And she doesn't catch on quick enough to realize that she's literally digging her in her own hole. But she is someone who, I believe, reads people and adjusts accordingly. It just might take her a while to get there. And you can see her do that here. she realizes that the whole "we had a great day" story isn't working. And so she starts changing things up and adapting her story.
Sarah, you can't play a player.
You can't play a player. Well, she's a narcissist too, so she thinks she can. They talk to her about the autopsy, telling her that he had an injury to his head that the ME doesn't think came from just being in the suitcase. He had nail scratches to his mid-upper back that Sarah said were due to their relations. He had a scratch across the back of his neck that Sarah couldn't explain. And she also couldn't explain the contusions to his left shoulder, left skull, and forehead, considered to be blunt force trauma, large bruises on both hands, and large bruises on the left side of his back and forearm. Sarah just reiterated that there was no physical altercation between them that day. It was a good day. She kept saying that she didn't intentionally leave George in the suitcase.
Yeah, she did. She fucking went to bed.
Yeah, not intentionally.
Whatever. She walked upstairs. Yes, that was intentionally.
They're like, you left him in there. And she's like, not intentionally.
He's like, oh, please just leave me in this fucking suitcase.
That's what she says.
I beg you, please don't unzip it.
Just leave me here. I'm great.
Please, I beg you to stay. I want to stay right here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, she says unintentionally and not intentional. Like she'll slap her hands when she says it to make the point. She's very adamant.
Whatever.
That this was not intentional.
Jackass.
And when they asked her why she didn't go, check on him when he didn't come upstairs, and she said, I don't know.
I know.
Exactly.
Because she's a jackass.
Exactly. So they pull out the laptop and start up a video. She watches a couple of seconds of it and immediately points out that the laptop battery is dying. So they work on getting that taken care of, and she starts to panic because that short little piece that she saw is George in that blue suitcase saying her name. She asks if she has to watch it.
Absolutely.
100%. They tell her that she can either watch and explain herself or they can take it for what it is. She had forgot, because she was so tired, that she had made a couple of videos and took some pictures that night. Now remember, she's not drunk. She forgot because she was too tired. But you're probably going to cover this later. Wasn't you telling me that she had him arrested a couple times? Oh, yes.
Many you're
times.
Probably going to cover this later.
Oh,
so.
yes.
Anyway.
Because this all came out in court. They had a very, like I said, domestic violence runs through this case.
Yeah. And so for that, George shouldn't have even been there.
And we'll get into that too.
We'll get into that later. But
yeah,
from what you told me, George should have been smart enough not to be dealing with this woman.
They had 2 no contact orders.
Yeah, which you'll cover that later.
I will. And he should not have been there, but we'll see why he was there many times that he shouldn't have been there.
Because he kept getting suckered in.
Yes.
And everything.
Yeah, we'll see. Now, these videos are sad to watch, and they are all over the internet. So if you want to watch them, you are 100% able to do that. The first video starts at 11:12 and lasts for 2 minutes and 3 seconds.
And we might post a link onto one of these videos or whatever on our Facebook. So
I'm not going to lie. I have a question about these videos, and so I took screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be posting that, but it's just a picture. It is not a video. So if you don't want to see that, even knowing what it is.
All you got to do, honestly, all you have to do is fucking go YouTube and type in Sarah Boone.
If you go to YouTube and type in Sarah Boone,
there's fucking thousands of fucking videos on this.
So much.
Yeah.
You'll be there forever.
And you'll find the damn cam footage. And You'll find all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. So that first video, like I said, it lasts 2 minutes and 3 seconds. The suitcase is on the living room floor, top down. So the flap that you open, the lid or whatever you want to call it, the part you lift up to put stuff in the suitcase, that is touching the floor. The suitcase is moving. George repeatedly says Sarah's name, and she responds by laughing, slurring her words and saying stuff like, "For everything you've done to me, fuck you," and "stupid." He says he can't breathe, and she keeps on with, "That's what I feel like when you choke me. That's what I feel like when you cheat on me. And you should probably shut the fuck up."
Well, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And if she was, slurring her words,
yeah,
that means she's either drunk or
I will say,
or she's taking some meds. And
I will say that there is zero evidence, zero history, zero anything of either one of them having a drug use issue. It's all alcohol.
So then she's,
Yeah, it's alcohol.
Unless she was having a stroke.
And we know she was not.
Shut up, fucker.
Mm-hmm. She will end up, by the end of this interview, blaming the alcohol. So at first I was not drunk.
Now she is.
Now she's like, it's the alcohol.
Oh, I just had too much peppermint schnapps.
Well, see, they used to like the vodka, but they don't have a lot of money. Now they've moved to wine.
Oh, it's the box wine.
There it is.
Is it old Boone's farm?
Actually, no, it's a Chardonnay that they were drinking that day. But the way they brought the bottles out in court, they called them Magnums. I don't know much about wine, but those are 1.5 liter bottle of wine.
I only heard Magnums like in condoms and ice cream.
And ice cream, yeah.
I guess they're stepping up.
But this just shows you that she adapts her story as it goes. So, and we've seen that a lot with people. Like, they'll be like, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, well, I know I originally said that it was not that, but yeah, it's totally that. And the second video started at 11:23 and lasts for only 22 seconds. You hear him in a different, quieter tone say her name one more time, and you can barely hear her snicker. But in the second video, the suitcase is moved a little to the left from where it originally was and is now flipped over where the flap is on the top. And this is what I was talking about, why I wanted to post those screenshots, because I focus on the most random shit sometimes, and it may not mean anything, but it bothers me that no one seems to talk about the flip-flops. But in the first video, there's a set of flip-flops closer to where she's sitting videoing. In the second video, one is over by the suitcase. So I'm wondering if she threw that at him in between videos, or did she get up and put them on and then they fell off while she was moving the suitcase? I know that makes no difference, but I just find it weird that nobody mentioned that. I need to know. But like I said, she talks about all of the domestic violence now. It went from a great day to it wasn't such a great day. And she talks about all the times that she's had to call the cops and that he's been arrested and that he always comes at her. And she says the now infamous quote, "I've always been a straight A student. I am an outstanding mother to my son. I excel at everything."
Get the fuck out of here. I excel at everything. I am a straight A student. Straight A student, man. You're 40. You're 40 fucking years old. You've long past your straight A student days.
Yes, by 20 years.
Because now you're in a fucking total dumbassery.
Yes.
Good
and
Lord.
She does actually get the fuck out of there because they arrest her, to her utter shock and dismay.
No.
Now, when they arrest her, she's literally shocked. And she's like, "Why are you doing this?" And the man detective, the male, he says, "Because George is dead."
Duh.
And he got a little flack for that, but it's the truth. She wouldn't have been arrested if George didn't die. Well, she might have if he actually would have pressed charges, but he doesn't tend to do that. We'll get into that. Now, she does plead not guilty, of course, when she is charged with second-degree murder. The reason it took so long to go to trial, because trial literally just happened, and so it took about 4.5 years to actually get there. And it's because she went through attorneys like 2012 Charlie Sheen went through the sugar, if you know what I mean. In July of this year, the judge said that she forfeited her right to court-appointed counsel, so she would have to represent herself because she had already gone through 8 lawyers. She's just so fucking difficult and is downright exhausting to have to deal with. And an example of that is she tried to get a dismissal saying that she wasn't afforded a speedy trial, which is her right, even though it was her fault that they couldn't go to trial because she was being an idiot. And she would also get in trouble for doing dumb shit like stapling her pants to make them more form-fitting. But one thing she did do when she was her own attorney was submit some documents to the court. Now, since she is quite a hot topic with the outside world, she knew that reporters and a bunch of other people like me would be pulling the docs since they are available to the public and reading them to stay up to date on the case out of interest. So she drew up a flyer for an attorney and put it in this document and snagged herself her 9th lawyer, James Owens. Now, he had about 45 days to prepare for the trial, but he knew what he was getting into. About 3 weeks before trial, they offered her a plea deal to plead guilty to manslaughter and get 15 years. She rejected that, which is dumb.
So stupid.
Because in Florida, you serve 85% of your time, putting that at about 12 3/4 years. And if she got time served, then that would take it down to about 8 years. But that would mean that she would have to plead guilty, and she is not about to do that. And I think
the whole thing is she already served fucking 4 years, so she would have only had like 4 more years to go.
No, that's what I'm saying. So 85% of it would have been 12 years, almost 13.
Oh,
and
so
then
she would have only had
her
more,
time
8 more
served.
years. I got you.
Right. So, but still, a total of 8. And then I'm sure they'll let you have some good behavior somewhere in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But she's not about to plead guilty. And like I said, I think the prosecution knew that. And so they were like, let's give her a sweetheart deal. And we won't even have to worry about it because she's going to say no anyway. And she did. So let's run down some things that we learned in court real quick.
Yeah. She fucked around and now she's about to find out.
You're damn right. Now, the coroner confirmed the injuries that George had and said his blood alcohol at the time was a 0.139, and he had nicotine and caffeine in his system. She said that he likely was in the suitcase for 11 hours or so, and that his injuries were consistent with being hit by a baseball bat and being pushed down the stairs. That all could have occurred around the same time, but she couldn't say if he was actually in the suitcase when they happened or not. 2 neighbors testified that they heard a loud noise that sounded like someone going down the stairs. Yes, so it started up high and then descended. So you know what it sounds like when somebody comes downstairs. The noise moves. And that's what they testified to. And that was at around 11 p.m. And they said it was so bad it shook their wall because they share a wall. So where they live, like Sarah and George lived in a townhouse, but the neighbor that shared a wall with them was in an apartment. So it's kind of like a mixed bag of things. So Sarah and George had a 2-story and the neighbors had a single story.
Yeah.
So they hear something start up high and then end where they are. And they're like, okay, that was definitely coming down the stairs.
And I imagine the stairs probably met up with their wall.
Yes. So you have the rail, the stairs, the wall. That's the wall they share.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it shook their wall. And defense would counter that actually happened on Saturday night when George dragged Sarah down the stairs by her hair, and that the neighbors were just mixing up their days. Now, this is his job. You know, you try to plant the seed of doubt, but they recounted their entire day. They know exactly what happened that day. And they're like, no, that's wrong. This totally happened on Sunday fun day. Also keep in mind that they went through so many witnesses on the first day because the state was tired of waiting. So they put someone on the stand, asked them specific questions they needed an answer for to get it on the record, and then let the jury hear it. And then it was on to the next. George's brother testified that George called him that afternoon and Sarah was in the background yelling for George to tell him about how he choked her. Not that day, on another day. And they called up a worker from the Publix, which is the store that they bought the wine from, so that they could get it on record to show that George did go to the store that day to buy a bottle of wine, but that Sarah had forgot to mention that they had bought a second bottle of wine. They had been at the store earlier and bought a bottle of wine, plus it came out that they had also finished off half a bottle that they'd already had left over from the day before. So she was like, oh yeah, George went and bought 1 bottle of wine, but they actually had 2.5 bottles of wine that day. Big difference.
Yeah, I mean, so they like to drink wine.
They like that wine. Like I said, they liked vodka, but since neither one of them really had a stable job, they had to go cheaper.
Yeah.
And they're not even buying the box wine, so they're not even going that cheap.
Yeah.
So now they know that they had quite a bit more to drink than Sarah originally said. And I think it was day 3, Sarah did take the stand in her defense. She was confronted about all that wine on Sunday fun day, and the fact that she had a massive hangover that next day. So when she gave her first story, I'm using my air bunnies, to the police, she was very sick. She was not feeling well at all. To summarize, she thinks she is putting on the battered spouse syndrome by mimicking what the experts say that they do. The puzzles and the painting, the change of scenery by going out on the back patio was her placating him, keeping him busy because she was always fearful, always on edge because George was so abusive. But to most people, it came across as her telling him what to do and when to do it. And she says, when he got into the suitcase, she decided that while she was safe, she would confront him about how he makes her feel when he is violent so that she could show him the next day and hopefully make him a better person. And I've already explained how she was doing that. It came out that he did have a job, even though she said repeatedly that he was stressed all the time because he didn't. Apparently, it was just an unstable job. And so he only worked a set amount of hours a week. And he hadn't worked much for the last few weeks. But remember, she hasn't had a job for a couple of years at this point. So come on. The jury gets to hear about the 9 minutes in between those videos where the suitcase was moved. Apparently, he stuck his fingers out of the gap in the zipper. And so she picked up Lucas's baseball bat and poked at his hand to get it back in. When that didn't work, she poked other areas of the suitcase with the bat until he pulled his hand back inside.
You mean she beat him with a baseball bat?
Yes.
While he's in the suitcase?
Yes.
That's it.
And she kept saying it was a poke.
There's no poking.
It was a poke.
He had bruises all over him.
All over him. And both hands were bruised. Remember that?
Yeah.
So if he could only get a couple of fingers out, he did not get both hands out of that suitcase. Yeah. There's no way. It doesn't add up to me. But she said that in between those videos, he got very angry.
Oh, God. Inside the suitcase, he got very angry?
Very angry.
I mean, what was he going to do?
Well, she said his tone changed and he threatened her, saying he was going to fucking end her.
Mm-hmm.
In both of these videos, he is not angry or yelling. He is pleading and saying he can't breathe because there is no airflow. His oxygen is being replaced with carbon dioxide with every breath that he takes. She, however, is laughing in both videos. So I really don't think she was as scared as she's trying to put it on. I'll also mention here that when the detectives pointed out in that second interview that they couldn't see his finger sticking out of the suitcase, and they asked her if she would ever put Lucas in a suitcase like that, and she said never. But I think it was about 4 years before George died, when Brian and her were still together. Child Services got called on them because she posted a picture on social media of Lucas in a suitcase.
Mm-hmm.
But it was ruled that it was a joke and consensual. He got in. He wanted to, I don't know if he was trying to scare his dad or what was going on, but it was just for fun. So they didn't do anything about it. No big deal, right? And then now 4 years later.
Maybe should have paid more attention to that.
Maybe she has an MO. Back to now. So a lot of domestic violence survivors.
It sounds like Brian got out in just a nick of time.
Brian still suffers at the hands of this woman to this day.
But it sounds like he got out at the right time.
Well, he didn't. I don't think he really had a choice because we'll find out later that she actually cheated on Brian with George.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would go to the bar because the bar was literally across the street from their house, and she would bring random people back. He would say that he'd get up at 3 a.m. because somebody was in his house, some random stranger, because she would bring them back to the house.
Yeah.
While Lucas and Brian are there asleep, and they'd be partying in the backyard. So I don't know. I just don't know. He probably thought he was getting out, but you don't really get away from somebody like this. I think she was abusing Brian too in his own way. And he just couldn't, now that they have a kid together, what's he going to do? Because she would leave George when they were fighting and go stay with Brian. So he was still letting her in and out of his house. Ugh, always the protector. Now, a lot of, like I said, domestic violence survivors online have been commenting that she is not exhibiting typical victim behavior. Of course, everyone in every situation is different. But if she was as fearful as she wants people to believe, she wouldn't have risked the wrath that she would have to face once he came out of that suitcase. So it was either wasn't what she was making it out to be, or she wasn't planning on letting him out. And most people agree that since she had a history of leaving when they fought to go stay with Brian, like I said, that she could have just left. She has a history of calling the cops, even jumping up and down on some of the body cam footage when they get there because she's so happy. But she didn't call the cops that night. She unintentionally went to bed. And don't get me wrong, I believe there was violence. I know there was violence. There's evidence of this. And I'm not talking shit like she's making everything up. It's just that you can't believe anything that comes out of her mouth. She always puts herself in the best light and makes everyone else the bad guy. The defense brought out blown up pictures of her with a black eye, scratches, pictures of when she had to have surgery and get stitches in her leg once because George stabbed her. She had made steak for dinner and he got mad out of nowhere and stabbed her, and then made her come up with a story before he would let her get medical help.
We knew they couldn't have come from hide and seek. What was it this time?
They were play sword fighting, and it was an accident.
Play sword fighting.
Yeah, she's like, I made this steak for you, and they had decided to have a sword fight, and she accidentally got cut on the back of her leg.
Shing, 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 shing.
With a steak knife.
It's like, duck.
That's like the most up close sword fight.
Whereas, duck.
Exactly. Duck, huh? Stab.
Yeah. Stab, stab, stab.
And there were pictures shown of George busting a TV with that same baseball bat, and then one of him pointing the bat at the camera. These were still images from a video. Prosecution showed a lot of videos. They probably didn't even have to say a word in this whole trial. Just let the defense get their stuff out, and then they could have just played all the videos and read all the text from Sarah's phone, and it would have been case closed. When the actual video of the TV was played, George says, "You're going to help me take this shit out," which made it seem to me like maybe the TV quit working or something, and since they were drunk, always, maybe they thought that it would be funny to bust it up, like a mutually agreed upon thing, and he was like, okay, but I'm not cleaning it up by myself. Hell, after a couple of swings with that bat, he has to stop and catch his breath. He's not acting wild and crazy. Nobody's yelling. Sarah never said a word through the whole video, never tells him to stop or don't do that. And this is another thing talked about a lot in the chats online, because most abusers would not be okay with you recording stuff like that if it's out of anger. But I digress. They bring in experts, forensic psychologists, saying that she has traits of a sufferer of battered spouse syndrome and PTSD, but also narcissistic personality disorder and alcohol abuse disorder.
Well, I mean, you can be a victim and an abuser at the same time.
Yep. And that's definitely what came out.
Every payday,
Stop it.
I had to tell my boss not to give him my paychecks.
He's lying.
Amy was going to beat me.
People will actually take that wrong. Stop it.
It's like payday day. I was like, shh, don't say it too loud. She'll
hear
you. It's like, what are you talking about? I was like, she beats me for my check.
Mm-hmm. Everybody who knows us knows that's not the case. Anyways, they had both been arrested for assaulting each other, but we all know that it is a known fact that less men report abuse than women. Her attorney kept calling it battered women syndrome or woman syndrome, and the experts would correct him and properly call it battered spouse syndrome. Watching body cam footage was a trip, and you can get the sense between those and the text messages that she would call him over there, wait for them to get into an argument or for him to go to sleep sometimes, and then call the cops and have him arrested. I think they said the cops were called around 16 times in the last year before George died. And he was only arrested, I think, 4 times, because she would also beg and plead with them not to arrest him. But at times when she wanted him arrested, or like the times when he was violating a no contact order, they would have to arrest him. And she tried to hug one of the cops once. That was so cringy. And he said, no hugs today. But she forced a hug on him anyway, and then tried to pull his arm to get him to come back towards her when he was trying to flee. And I say it like that because Sarah used to always say she'd have to flee to Brian's house. But since George wasn't able to tell his own story, these videos, texts, interviews with people who interacted with them as a couple, they shed a lot of light, showing George saying that she was nutty, saying she hit him all the time and hit him first all the time. One time, she called the cops because they had broke up 3 weeks ago, and she had taken him off the lease, but she was still bugging him for rent money. Now, he couldn't cash his check because she wouldn't give him his ID and birth certificate. The texts show her telling him to come and get them. At one point, she sent a picture of his birth certificate, and then another after she ripped it up, saying, "All up to you, big boy. Look what you made me do." Body cam footage shows he was over there to get his documents, and she called them. George gets put in cuffs, and the cops ask Sarah for his documents, and she tells them she threw them in the bushes.
Sounds like she's very toxic.
She is very toxic.
In that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very.
That's what I was saying. It's like, why would he put himself in that position?
Well, he's abused. Most people who are
I know, but it's
abused.
just like you've had all this history of her calling the cops.
Yes.
Doing this, saying, oh, come over and I'll give you this. And then
you know what's coming.
Get there and then fucking call the cops.
Yeah.
Now you go over and drink.
Yeah.
What, you think it's going to be any better? No.
And his family was very adamant that he cut that relationship out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good for you. But that's why it's called battered spouse syndrome, because you feel like you need that person. And she made it very aware and very clear. She has control of his documents. She has control of his money. She tells him when to call his kids. She was in control, and he was very dependent on her. She made it that way, to where he was very dependent. And that's what they do. That's what abusers do. So when they would break up, he would actually go to his mom's house. And so they were very aware of this. And like I said, they were always like, this is not healthy for you. It's not good for you. But they even put in at one point to say, you have to pick. It's either her or us, because we can't keep doing this back and forth. We can't watch you do this to yourself. Now, when he was over there at his mom's house, she would text his mom's phone to talk to him. And he had a phone at one point, because he pulled it out in one of the other videos to record her while she was recording him. But no one ever said where that phone went. Either way, texts show that Sarah texted the mom's phone saying, stay Hispanic. That's what you all are. What the fuck does that even mean? George replied that they were from Puerto Rico and proud. She also texted mom's phone, just know I do so much more damage than all of you put together. Know that. Try me. So it sounds like she was really terrified of them. She has videos where she was coaching George on what to say to the judge to get her charges dropped, because they've both had charges against each other. And so she was telling him word for word what to tell the judge. And he says something about her being a great person or some shit. And she corrects him to say she's an angel. One, she's having him repeat that he watched porn. And Sarah doesn't like that. But he did it anyway. And she's on that video telling him what to say. And if he doesn't repeat it back fast enough, she hatefully says, say it, say it. One of the saddest of these videos is when he is passed out sleeping against the door, and she wakes him up to berate him. Now, this is the door inside the house. So she's berating him, and he's basically in a fetal position, leaned against the wall, all groggy, confused as hell. He was literally asleep and obviously drunk. And she says, I told you not to bother me. He was literally asleep. She makes him go downstairs. But as he's going, she's still running her mouth. And he comes back up the stairs and tries to take the phone or something away from her, when she starts saying, I dare you. I'm going to scream bloody murder. I'm going to fucking hurt you.
The evidence doesn't match what is coming out of her mouth.
No, because she's lying.
At all.
Because she's lying. Now, they played the suitcase video again at the end of the trial, and it hit different this time. Hearing him say her name the same way he said it in the other videos. Hearing her say, that's my name, don't wear it out, just like she said in other videos. It all looked a little different this time. Throw in the fact that I, personally, never saw a tear come out of her. Not in any of the videos, body cam footage, in court, nothing. An issue happened when they played the video on the last day. George's mother became overwhelmed with emotion. Suddenly, the court stops. The camera pans over and you see her, as quietly as she can, leaving the courtroom. And Owens flips shit. He was pissed. Now, this is her lawyer. You don't want something like that to happen in court. You don't want to sway a jury right before deliberation by, seeing a grieving mother break down. That's not something that can be controlled, though. But instead of Owens being like, Judge, I request a mistrial because of what happened, because blah, 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 blah. But the more he talked, the madder he seemed. Arm gestures, going wild. He blamed the prosecution, saying that they should have warned the family and that they shouldn't have been on the front row. And if they couldn't handle seeing the video, they need to get out of the courtroom. And the prosecution was just like, life, Your Honor. They were warned. They were told not to make a scene, but life. You can't control your emotions when it's a mother.
Yeah. I mean, what the fuck did you expect?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
You're lucky the mother didn't jump over the fucking...
We see that a lot.
The fucking deal and go at her.
Yeah.
Or any of the family.
Yeah, he has daughters. I mean? He has grown daughters.
That's what I'm saying. You're lucky that none of them actually went after her.
Yep.
They held their composure until they couldn't.
Yep. Exactly. And you don't know what's going to happen. You can probably say, okay, for this, I can hold it. But you don't know what your body's going to react like.
Yeah.
But it pissed Owens off. And I can kind of understand, but there was ways he could have said it without, making the family seem like they were at fault. It just really pissed me off the way he said it.
No, Sarah's at fault.
Exactly. She's the reason they're there.
She's the reason why they're there.
Exactly. So the judge denied the mistrial and everyone moved on.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. Oh, this judge was so fucking awesome. He gave them everything they wanted so that she couldn't be like, oh, well, you denied me my rights. No, they asked for something. He's like, granted. You want it? Take it.
Yeah.
And every day, I will get into that. Another thing that really drove it home for the state was when in rebuttal, the prosecutor got the suitcase and the bat and he laid it in its position and pointed out that the place where George's back would have been, he just tapped the side of the suitcase with the bat. And it was a part of kind of the bottom. And you know that those parts have sturdier sides because that's what protects your stuff that's in it, right? The top flap is wild. It can move. But the bottoms have a little more structure. And he proved that she couldn't have just poked gently with that bat and caused all the bruises. They were pointing out pretty much what I think happened. I think that suitcase was upstairs. And she said that they usually kept it in the back of the closet up there. So it makes sense. I think they were arguing. She hit him in the head with the bat and either knocked him out or dazed him enough to be able to put him in that suitcase. And then she pushed him down the stairs.
I think that he was dumb enough to get into the suitcase.
Oh, you think he got it on his own?
I think that they somehow. Okay,
but where was it? Upstairs? That's thunder.
I think it was downstairs.
Okay.
No. Sorry. I think it was upstairs, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was sitting there begging her to let him out. And she got tired of it because she was ready to go to bed. And she
was
tumbled his ass down the stairs.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay.
That's what I think. And then she did whatever she was going to do, recording and all that crap. And then.
Okay. Remember that you said it that way.
Okay.
Because in part 2, I read or listened to all of the interviews from the neighbors, from everybody on what happened that day.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into more because they didn't bring that out to the jury. Certain things the jury didn't hear.
Yeah.
So they pushed this trial fast. Like I said, the judge was great. He was ready. He was ready. The prosecutor was ready. And Owens did his best. And he had several other lawyers with him. And he basically, like I said, gave the defense everything they asked for to help push it along and help with the appellate courts because she's going to appeal, of course. He constantly asked Sarah if she was happy with her attorneys, happy with the defense they were putting up, all that every day. And late Friday night, the jury deliberated and ate dinner for about an hour and 20 minutes, and then let them know that she is definitely guilty. Now, instead of that 15-year plea deal that she so didn't want, she's now looking at a minimum of 22 and a half years with a maximum of life. Now, they have to do a pre-sentencing investigation, so they had to schedule the sentencing for December 2nd. So we'll definitely have to do an update when that happens.
Yeah, but the jury didn't waste no time. I mean, it was it was basically like I said the other day. I was like, oh, so they went in the room. They was like,
what do you think?
We all know, right? We're
right.
We're all agreeance, right? I mean, you guys want to go get some steak?
Right.
At least eat some dinner.
They had their dinner brought in, so they're just like, they're talking about other things. So what'd you do last week?
Play a round of Uno.
With the correct rules?
Drag it around. Yeah, with the, home rules. We had enough of this shit. We need to go straight.
Right. We need to do things legit. Yeah. So that's pretty much what happened. And that morning, so this was, like I said, this was late Friday night. I think it was like 9:00 our time. And I was a little behind on the trial because I have a life too. So I was still on like the day's proceedings, and I had to stop and Google because I found out they had a verdict. But that Friday morning, so before they got to the verdict, George's family was interviewed on court TV, and his daughter says that no one had ever asked them any questions about the case, their experience with Sarah, their relationship between the two of them, none of that. Now, victim impact statements will be sad to hear. They always are, but these will be read at sentencing because the prosecutor said there would be 2 to 3 victim impact statements being read.
And they should be.
Yes.
I mean, because that's the point of them.
Oh, yeah. I'm always happy when families find the courage to read these because
absolutely.
If not, you only hear from the defendant if they speak.
And that's the only time that they actually really get to speak their fucking mind.
It's the only time they can speak to her 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I hope they try to get it out because his daughter already said that Sarah's calculating and kept George from his family. So I hope they let her have it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, the whole thing is like they'll never get to see him again.
No.
They'll never get to hug him or be with him or have anything to do with, anything with him. He'll never get to experience grandkids or anything.
Right.
With them.
Yeah, he had his problems and he had his issues, but we'll never see if he was able to overcome them.
That's the whole thing. Eventually, people get tired of the same old, and they change.
Yeah.
And they
want the same shit. You get the same shit.
Exactly. And eventually you just want a better life for yourself.
Right.
And
you don't have a chance now.
And you actually find somebody that wants something better for you.
Yeah.
Very
true. But
I tell people all the damn time, I was very fucking lucky when I got you.
Oh, hey. Really?
So, absolutely.
That's nice.
So,
I'm great.
26 years now?
Yeah. I'm glad for that question mark at the end.
26 years? Well, it feels like forever.
Okay.
A long time.
This doesn't sound very flattering.
Time.
I'm feeling less loved.
But, no, I love you to death.
I know.
Not literal death. But,
oh, God.
I don't want,
I got
because
you.
we are murder with the missus. I don't want to be like missus. But
I'm glad we're not on video right now. Could you?
All the hand gestures.
And that face.
But that's the whole thing. It's like not everybody gets as lucky the first time around.
That's very, very true.
I did. True. I got very lucky. First go.
Right out the gate.
Yep.
Same here.
You can call it a blessing. You can call it whatever you want, but I was very fortunate.
We are very fortunate. Yeah. Yes. Both of us. Yes.
So
we'll definitely do a follow-up on this one and let everyone know how they sentence her. I don't think we'll have to do a whole episode on it, but we might throw it in there when it happens. And hopefully we gave you an idea on what happened in court and the criminal case. So make sure you catch the next one, part 2, where I will get into the alimony case a little bit and Brian. And then what we learned outside of court. You would be amazed what doesn't make it into a trial sometimes.
Absolutely. So yeah, catch us on the next one. We'll drop this one hopefully Monday, hopefully Tuesday. So YouTubers just keep patience with us.
YouTube didn't play.
We're trying to play catch up. So till next time, you guys, share with your friends. Make sure you tell everybody. We need subscribers, please.
Yeah, we got to grow.
All right.
Bye.